Hello everyone, welcome to this video session of InsideIIM, where I'll be taking you through the journey of a series of lectures comprising VARC, and our main focus would be how to build a solid and proof strategy to tackle the VARC section of the day. CAT has been notoriously difficult as far as the standard of VARC section is concerned, and ever since CAT 2019 one has seen the drastic increase in the difficulty level of verbal ability and reading comprehension section, with 99 percentile hitting as low as 42 out of 78 marks in 2020. So what we could infer is that obviously everyone would say reading reading helps you a lot, because obviously the CAT RCs has various genres from which the topics come from. Some beautiful magazines, books, natural science articles or social science articles, philosophy, which is often considered dry subject. But then in the recent years of CAT, the philosophical RCs are less in common. That has been asked. But if you go to the CAT of golden days of early CAT 2000s and 2001, 2, 3, you've seen umpteen number of RCs full of philosophy, deep, intricate questions. But what we need to do as a reader is that we need to be well versed with various set of topics. We'll cover a certain section in which we'll see the sources from which the RCs are taken out, and how should we go about it, and the various platform to practice RCs. The agenda for today is that I want you to make you all guys go through the way to solve the RC, especially this one has been taken from CAT 2019 slot 1, and it's talk about Aladdin and the story of Aladdin, how it was written. Obviously a fabulous RC with a lot of innuendos and remarks and lot of leftover ideas which hadn't to be interconnected in order to get to the main point the author was referring to. And then it was followed by some beautiful set of questions in which elimination method would have been a proper way to get through the right answer. So as we drill down, our idea would be such that we'll be reading the paragraph. Obviously I'll try to convey you the meaning, what happens, what kind of framework needs to be applied in order to effectively capture the essential, then connect those dots and then build a sentence in order to make sure that you are going through the right path. So here we go, we begin it. In the past, so mind you, the starting, the author cautions you using the word in the past. In the past, it says, it's not about the present, but it's about the past. Credit for telling the tale of Aladdin has often gone to Antonio Galland. So credit of telling the tale of Aladdin has often gone to Antonio Galland in past. It's a thing of past as of now. And now you see they followed it by 3 dots. So what this 3 dots signifies, some part of sentence or some part of the paragraph has been left out intentionally, and the remaining part has been inserted over here. The first European translator of, and then again certain paragraphs have been removed, of Arabian Nights. So in past what happened is that credit for telling the tale of Aladdin has often gone to Antonio Galland, who was the first European translator of Arabian Nights. And what was that? What was Arabian Nights? Arabian Nights, which started as a series of translation of an incomplete manuscript of medieval Arabic story collection. So basically Arabian Nights was itself a series of translation of an incomplete manuscript of medieval Arabic origin story collection. So basically a medieval Arabic stories, there was a collection of stories from there, and from that Aladdin was derived out, as the author says. And it was a medieval period, mind you, that is of primary importance that we have to take care and note it out. But now see, these words are very important, but however, although these are the words which changes the course of the passage, the author hints at something, certain ideas that he will introduce us, and make us go through it. So basically, CAT RCs are always structured in such a way that a particular emphasis, or let us say a particular set of instructions, is mentioned in the first paragraph. A brief explanation is given about it, and then a contradictory set of idea is brought up. A set of explanation is also given to that particular set of idea also, and then two are contrasted, and the final conclusion is left by the author, or sometimes it is also left in a cliffhanger position for you to decide which way it goes. But generally that happens in a very less number of times, and obviously it gives you liberty. It doesn't give you liberty for that matter, because it becomes a pure English kind of exam. It's more of a logical kind of exam where to apply your aptitude along with your language skills. And so here now the author is changing his instance. But though these tales were of medieval origin, Aladdin may be a more recent invention. So author says even though these tales were of medieval origin, Aladdin may be a more recent invention. They're not sure, but they say they may be a more recent invention. Scholars haven't found a manuscript of the story that predates the version published in 1712 by Galan. So they haven't found any manuscript. The scholars who are researching there, well, definitely there will be certain scholars who would be researching as far as the story books are concerned, in which era what was written, and what was the purpose behind writing those books. So what they found out was that they hadn't found any book or any manuscript, any version which was published before 1712. So 1712 was the first version that was published by Galan himself, who wrote in his diary that he first heard the tale from a Syrian storyteller from Aleppo named Hanadia. Now, the author says that Galan wrote in his diary that he first heard the tale of from a Syrian storyteller from Aleppo named Hanadia. So, before that we don't know. One thing which we know for sure, that this our guy heard this story from Aleppo based, from a Syrian storyteller from Aleppo named Hanadia. This is what we get to know. But this thing he writes in his diary. This is important. Now we go to the second paragraph. A few ideas has again been cut, which is being represented by 3 dots. Now come to the next part. Despite the fantastical elements of the story. Now, despite the fantastical elements. This is something again which gauges my interest. Again, the author is trying to shift to a different direction altogether. Despite the fantastical elements of the story, scholars now think the main character may actually be based on a real person's real experiences. This is very, very important. So even though there are the fantastical elements which you feel are too good to be true or too fancy to be true, scholars now think that the main character, who is the main character, Aladdin, may actually be based on a real person's real experiences. Though Galan never credited Diab in his published translation of Arabian Nights story, Diab wrote something of his own. Now it seems that though Galan never credited Diab in his published translation of Arabian Nights story, so what he did write in his diary that he heard it, but as far as the Arabian Night is concerned, he says that he never credits him that he is the creator of Arabian Nights. It's just our inference which we are trying to make and connect the dots that look, you heard it from him, and that is the reason that he may be the writer, and then you are just one who is recreating it. And then the author builds on various statements. That is what you can get the plot as far as this whole passage is concerned, and it is moving in that particular direction. Yeah. Though Galan never credited Diab in his published translation of Arabian Nights stories, Diab wrote something of his own. Now, Diab said that, look, I write something of my own. So he wrote it. He wrote something of his own. A travelogue penned in the mid-18th century. So he wrote a travelogue that was penned in mid-18th century. Mid-18th is around 1750, same time as around the first version of Arabian Night was published. It was published in 1712. So specifically around 38 years after that. In it he recalls telling Galan the story of Aladdin and describes his own hard knocks upbringing and the way he marveled at extravagance of Versailles. Very, very important. So what does he say? So not only did he met Galan, he tell him the story also, and not only did he share the story to Galan, he also described his hard knock upbringings which he faced through his childhood days, and the way he marveled when he first comes to Versailles and sees the extravagance of Versailles. He gets marveled by it. The description he uses were very similar to the description of the lavish palace that ended up in Galan's version of Aladdin's story. It's a very important, very important line, ladies and gentlemen, because this forms the basis on which the scholars are contesting. So the version which we read in Aladdin's book, the way Aladdin marvels when he reaches a city and when he reaches the lavish palace, is in tandem to what Galand would have experienced when he saw the extravaganzas of Versailles. Yeah. So the description he uses were very similar to the description of the lavish palace that ended up in Galant version of Aladdin's story. Therefore, author Paulo Lemos Hota believes that Aladdin might be the young Arab Maronite from Aleppo marveling at the jewels and riches of Versailles. So this is the reason. This is the reason why our man Hota believes that Aladdin might be the young Arab Maronite from Aleppo, marveling at the jewels and riches of Versailles. This is what our friend Hota believes, and the reason has been sufficiently laid because the way he marveled at the by coming to Versailles and the way he faced childhood struggles and the stigmas which he had to go through, almost similar are the description which is being made in Aladdin, and the most important part is the way he marveled at seeing the extravaganzas of Versailles is what something which draws the author attention. For 300 years, the scholar thought that the rags to riches story of Aladdin might have been inspired by the plot of French fairy tales that came around that same time, or that the story was invented in that 18th century period as a byproduct of French Orientalism. So very crisply, I'll describe what this whole paragraph tries to, this whole where I read tries to convey. For the past 300 years, there is basically two ways in which scholars think that this particular book Arabian Nights would have been written. One side think that two sets, basically two ideologies are being developed, two hypotheses have been laid. One is that it has been played on written on the similar plot line of rags to riches story of France of 1800, because at that particular time stories of France were typically based on the theme of rags to riches, and secondly it was also the byproduct of French Orientalism. Now the word Orientalism becomes very important. Orientalism specifically means of when a Westerner started taking a keen interest in Middle Eastern culture, or let's say extravaganzas. So now by the byproduct of French Orientalism, and here the comma is which is used over here is an important aspect, and for grammatical portion also it becomes important. This is called as noun opposition, and from here it is describes what is French Orientalism. A fascination with the stereotypical exotic Middle Eastern luxuries that was prevalent then. This is known as French Orientalism. The idea that Diab might have based it on his own life, the experience of a Middle Eastern man encountering the French and not vice versa. Now, Diab might have based it on his own life, the experience of Middle Eastern man visiting France and not a French guy getting accustomed to French Orientalism flips the script. So what was the script? Script was that the French are attracted, and due to the French Orientalism, they are writing this book. Or more basically, the rag to riches story appealed to them. But actually, this man Diab coming from Arab country, or for that matter coming from Syria, and writing this, coming to France, getting marveled by the extravaganzas of Versailles, and seeing the experiences, this thing flips the script because it was not traditional during that time. Diab was ideally placed, according to Hota, Diab was ideally placed to embody the overlapping world of East and West, blending the storytelling tradition of his homeland with his youthful observation of the wonder of 18th century France. Fabulous. According to Hota, Diab was in the best possible condition. Why he was in the best possible condition? Because according to him, he would have seen the best and worst of both worlds. And when I say both world, I mean the East and the West. And by his youthful observation, he would have been able to grasp it powerfully and even better, and would have been able to better reproduce it. Okay. To the scholars who study the tale, its narrative drama isn't the only reason. Storytellers keep finding reason to return to Aladdin. Again, it's a very, very important aspect of the passage. As it says, to the scholars who study the tale, its narrative drama isn't the only reason. So narrative drama is one of the reason, but it is not the only reason. Now, for the such kind of questions, memory traps are created. Memory traps are the certain traps in which you feel that a particular statement is correct just because you would have read something similarly close to it in the passage, and then you won't be going back again to the passage and marking a wrong answer. This should not be done. So there are basically two kinds of question that could be created. One is a local question, one is a global question. Global question is you know the basic summary, the structure of the passage, and you can definitely knock off that particular question. The local question will be something in which you have to go back and refer to the passage and find out what the right answer is. Now, it says its narrative drama isn't the only reason storytellers keep finding reason to return to Aladdin. It reflects not only a history of the French and the Middle East, but also a story about Middle Eastern coming to Paris, and that speaks to our world today. So there are three things. It not only does tell the story of France, it not only does tell the story of Middle East, but it tells a story of a Middle Eastern coming to France. That speaks of our world today, that today our world is totally globalized, where people from anywhere, any corner of the world can go to anywhere and any settle down at any part of the world. And that is why it's still relevant, because its ideas are still present and relevant even today. As Hota puts it, the day Diab told the story of Aladdin to Galan, there were riots due to the food shortages. During the winter and the spring of 1708 to 1709, and Diab was sensitive to those people in a way that Galland is not. Now, Hota puts even a bolder claim. He wants to bolster his claim that Galland was not to be credited as the author of our book. Let Diab be the author, and in that particular contention, he comes out, sticks his neck out, and says that there were riots due to food shortages in France between 1708 to 1709. And Diab was very, very sensitive. In fact, when you read this diary, you see this solidarity among the Arabs who were in Paris at this time. So the Arabs were very sensitive to the kind of treatment that people met during those times due to food shortages. And the same kind of sympathy could not be expected out of Galan, because obviously there would be a cultural difference. And the way those things are expressed, the way the character of Aladdin is deeply ingrained with passion, and the way he comes out and deliver that particular thing, it makes Hota believe that it cannot be the creation of Galan, but rather it would be the creation of Diab. Now it sees it further to exemplify. There's little in the writing of Galan that would suggest that he was capable of developing a character like Aladdin with sympathy. Fabulous, fabulous, beautiful. This is something which carries the essence of the entire passage. Knock it off completely down the line. Finished. The passage is finished over here, clearly. But Diab's memoir reveals a narrator adept at capturing the distinctive psychology of a young protagonist, as well as recognizing the kind of injustice and opportunity that can transform the path of any youthful adventure. Fabulous, fabulous way to describe. Let's say, look, you are not the writer, he is the writer. This was all from the passage explanation. Now let us go through the question stem and see how to answer the questions effectively. Yeah. All of the following serve as evidence for the character of Aladdin being based on Hana Diab's except. So all of the following serves as evidence for character of Aladdin being based on Hana Diab except. So we have seen various things, and let us see how we are going to answer this question. Now, Diab's cosmopolitan and cross-cultural experience. Cosmopolitan means He has seen various places, as in he has seen the part of Arab, he has seen the part of France. So definitely he's a cosmopolitan and he has a cross-cultural experience. And the author again and again, Hota again and again claims that since he has a cross-cultural experiences, he's better poised to write a tale like Aladdin, and hence this can serve as an evidence for the character of Aladdin based being based on Hanadiab. Now come to the second option. The app's humble origins and class struggles as recounted in his travelogue. This is also perfectly fine, juicy, right, direct answer. Because the app's humble origin, now you can see an example of rags to riches where it comes that, and Diab also tells in his travelogue that he remembered telling Galand about his humble beginning and his own story, and the way he marveled at seeing Vasilis. So the humble origin and class has struggles, and as recounted in its travelogue, definitely serve as a base to make sure that Aladdin is based on Hanadiab only, because Aladdin also went through the similar phases, and from that we can extrapolate it out. Now come to the third option. Diab's description of wealth of Versailles in his travelogue. This is again a very fine, correct option, because at one point in the passage we clearly see a comparison is being made where it says um, when Hana Diab went to Versailles and he was just bewildered by the extravagance of Versailles. In a similar way, in Arabian Nights also, the main character Aladdin, when he reaches the palace, he is just bored by it. So basically, there is a correlation, there is a similarity between two. And the Diab's description of wealth of Versailles in his travelogue is in tandem with it. Now come to the fourth option. Diab's narration of original story to Galan. We don't know. To be honest, we don't know whether this is correct or not. This is semi-correct. Diab's narration of original story to Galan. This is what Diab has written in his travelogue. This is what Galand has written in his diary. But it has not been written in the published version. So we are not 100% sure that whether this is authentic or not. And just by listening to it, he was so much influenced that he based the character of Aladdin out of listening only. So we are not very sure about this. Hence, this will be the answer. So in this particular kind of questions where the options are you feel they are very close, you try to eliminate the option based upon the 100% certainty available. No inference question can be marked correctly without 100% significance and 100% meaning being derived out of it from here. Particularly, no question can be directed, and as far as inference based questions are concerned, nothing could be derived out unless and until it is 100% explicitly mentioned in the passage. That's a rule of thumb. Don't go ahead and mark just because you feel this is the meaning, intended meaning. The author may mean something else unless and until specified. No inference question is marked without the explanation given in the passage. It's not marked by intuition. Let's go to the other part of the questions. Let's deal with the other question. The author of the passage most likely to agree with which of the following explanation for the origin of the story. Now let's see what is the author of the passage really wants to do. Galan derived the story of Aladdin from Diab's travelogue in which he recounts his fascination with the wealth of Versailles. So Galan derived the story of Aladdin from Diab's travelogue. Diab says he has told the story to Galan in his travelogue. Galand has written in his diary that he has heard the story from Diab, but it has nowhere been explicitly mentioned that Galand has derived the story of Aladdin from Diab's travelogue. Had it been derived the story of Aladdin from Diab, it would have made complete sense. Diab's travelogue, in which he recounts his fascination with the wealth of Versailles, it's a memory trap. People would have gone ahead and marked this answer and they would have fetched a negative -1 mark. See how beautifully these traps are being created for you guys. The app's travelogue rather than the app himself. This is something which you need to be very, very careful while you're taking the exam. Don't let the exam rush get over you. Enjoy the process, enjoy the art of reading, then only you will be able to knock the questions off without taking any tension as far as the passage itself is concerned. Now read the second option. The story of Aladdin has its origin in an undiscovered, incomplete manuscript of medieval Arabic collection of story. Now it says the story of Aladdin has its origin in an undiscovered, incomplete manuscript of medieval Arabic collection of story. So okay, it can have, but how does the author relate to it? Author does not relate to it. It says it is the stated fact. Scholars have been finding it out, but the author does not say that the origin of Aladdin's story is because it has been copied from a Arabic collection of story. It is just a memory trap trying to make a fool of you. It will be a blunder and suicide to mark on this particular option. Now let us go to option C. Basing it on his own life, Diab transmitted the story of Aladdin to Galland, who included it in Arabian Nights. Fabulous, fabulous. Everything what the author is explaining in the passage has been presented to you in a lucid format, in plain, subtle words without using extreme words. This is the option I would definitely like to mark in the first go. But I'll wait and see what the fourth option is. Galland received the story of Aladdin from Diab, who in turn found it an incomplete medieval manuscript. Again, completely wrong due to the second part. Who in turn found it in incomplete medieval script. We never know from where did he find it out. So this is completely wrong. The only choice we are left with is C. That is third one. This is the right answer of this particular question. Yeah. Here we go to the next question. Which of the following, if true, would invalidate the inversion that the phrase flips the script refers to? So the flip the script, as far as the passage itself is concerned, if you see, flip the script meant that the idea that Diab might have based it on his own life, the experience of Middle Eastern man encountering the French, is not vice versa, flip the script. So the script was that the stories are written from the perspectives of French Orientalism and not the other way around. That is, the Eastern man won't be coming to West and dictating the story, and that is written. So this was the flipping of script. What would invalidate this flipping of script? Now we come and see the options. The Diab's travelogue described the affluence of city of Bordeaux instead of Versailles. So what? Let it be the city of Bordeaux. It is describing the affluence of that particular city, right? So he is captivated by the affluence anyways, whether it be city of Bordeaux or whether it be a city of Versailles or anything for that matter, whether it be city of Paris, how does it matter? It's anyway describes the affluence of that particular city in which he was moved by, and that particular city draws the inference out of it, because at the end of the day Aladdin reaches the palace where he is drawn by the magnificence of the palace. So it's nowhere mentioned that the name of that particular palace. So this option does not flip the script. Let's go to option number 2. The French fairy tales of 18th century did not have rag to riches plot like that of the tale of Aladdin. What rubbish! It's out of scope. It is not talking something that sensical. So let the French fairy tales of 18th century have rags to riches story. Author clearly mentions that for the past 300 years, scholars were of the opinion that rags to riches story is the plot of Aladdin. That is what they have gone ahead and said, that this is what led to the foundation of the plot of Aladdin. But this was not true, because Aladdin was based out of the personal experience, as the author further found it out. So the French fairy tale story of 18th century did not have rags to riches plot like that of Tale of Aladdin. It's completely baseless. This won't invert the flip. Now you see the C part. The description of opulence in Hana Diab and Tony Galland's narration bore no resemblance to each other. Perfectly fine. Perfectly fine answer. Why now, you would say? Because Hana Diab is explaining something from the perspective of a Easterner coming to West and describing the features, which is relevant, and this is again contradictory to the script part, and this flips the script. And if it does not matches with the gallant's description of the palace, then it does not flip the script because those two descriptions are completely different. That means Galland would have based his story out of what was popular in France at that particular time. So there's a kind of clear cut difference. That's a beautiful inference based question that they have created. They required you to go to an extra bit and think in this particular lines, and hence this particular option seems most tempting to me as of now. I'll wait and see the fourth part and then decide whether to mark ahead with this or not. Galland acknowledged in the published translation of Arabian Nights that he had heard the story of Aladdin from the. So what? So it does not flip the script. Flip the script is completely different part. It's a different idea which we are discussing about. It is again a baseless thing. So there would be certain type of options which would just be creating doubt to your mind that look, this is the option which we want to mark. Out of scope, something else would be added up, or something else is being talked about and something other option will be coming up. These are the traps which you have to be aware of. So don't get trapped into this. These are the beginner's mistakes or novice mistakes which you commit in the RC passages while you're trying to solve it up. So definitely don't go by them. Check it out and mark C as the right answer. That is the right answer. Yeah. Which of the following is the primary reason for why storytellers are still fascinated by the story of Aladdin? Now, if I go, this is again a local question. When I say local, it is based out of passage. It's not based on central idea or theme of the passage. Now see, to the scholars who study the tale, its narrative drama isn't the only reason. Storytellers keep finding reasons to return to Aladdin. It reflects not only a history of French and Middle East, but also a story about Middle Easterns coming to Paris, and that speaks to our world today. So it's not only about the story plot, not only about the history of France, not only about the history of Middle East, but also about something that speaks about our world today. So if we go ahead and mark this particular option, which is over here, let's see. The traveler's experience that inspired the tale of Aladdin resonates even today. Can be one of the options we can take into consideration. The tale of Aladdin documents the rich history of Europe and Middle East. It is one of the reasons, but not the sole reason. This is not the primary reason. The archetype of rags to riches story of Aladdin makes it popular even today. No, this has not been said. It said it is not because of this particular thing. So this option is completely eliminated. B is semi-truth. The story of Aladdin is evidence of the 18th century French Orientalist. This is completely business. What if it is the evidence of 18th century French Orientalist? Why will be the storytellers then coming back and referring to it again and again? Is it the classic of French? Is this the epitome of French Orientalism? We don't know. We have no idea. So we won't be going away and marking it like a fool. To mark this option would be a suicide. So the only correct option would be this one. This is perfectly fine. It's subtle and clearly describes the meaning the author wanted to convey. Now the final question before we wrap up the session for today. Which of the following does not contribute to the passage's claim about the authorship of Aladdin? The narrative sensibility of Diab's travelogue, the description of the affluence of Versailles in Diab's travelogue, Galland's acknowledgement of Diab in his diary, the storyline of many French tales of 18th century. Now, does not contribute to the passage's claim about the authorship of Aladdin. Okay, if I were to go about this and seek the answer of this particular question, narrative sensibility of Diab's dialogue and the authorship of Aladdin. Obviously, because you clearly see Hoda has written that there was riots due to food shortage, and the riots were there due to food shortage, and what happened because of that particular thing, since and Diab was more sensitive towards it. People of Arab were more sensitive towards those riots, and this can be clearly described in the way Diab writes in his travelogue, and that resonates in the book that resonates in Arabian Nights. And the author sticks his neck out and further says that Hota sticks his neck out and further says that he is very sure, or he is sure that Galan could not create a character like this which is full of so much of empathy. So obviously it contributes to the passage's claim about the authorship of Aladdin. Let's go to the second option. The depiction of the affluence of Versailles in the travelogue. Again, perfectly fine with it. Description of affluence of the Versailles in the travelogue. It's clearly mentioned he was bewildered when he saw the affluence of Versailles, and it's a hint also that in the passage that Aladdin reaches to the palace in the last part of the play, the story, he reaches the palace and gets bewildered and blowed by it. And the description of Versailles was almost in the similar lines to that of a palace being described by our man Galan. So what we can think is that the depiction of affluence of Versailles in Diab's dialogue is indeed a right answer. So obviously it does contribute to the passage's claim. Galan's acknowledgement of Diab in his diary. This is again a memory trap. Most of the people will mark this and will comfortably feel that they have done a correct option, but no, it's wrong. Because why does it not contribute to the passage's claim about the authorship of Aladdin? Galan has acknowledged that in his diary. In his diary, he has written that he has heard the story from of Aladdin from a Syrian traveler from Aleppo, and Hana Diab was that traveler. So obviously Galan's acknowledgement of Diab in his diary is a clear indication about the authorship of Aladdin, that he is the one who is the author. As per the passage, we're not sure 100% that he is the author, but as per the passage, that is what you have to go. We're not to go outside the scope of the passage. The last part, the storyline of many French tales of 18th century. So the storyline of many French tales of 18th century was about rags to riches. And this passage is not only about rags to riches, it has various other themes getting underlined to it. So rags to riches was just one part of it. So it's semi-correct. So it does not contribute to the claim about who is the author of Aladdin. So this will be the right answer. People would have gone ahead and marked C and they would have gotten it wrong. The whole idea is that once you're solving the RC, be very comfortable, read the question very carefully, read the options even more carefully. Try to go through each options with a clear mind. Don't have a prejudice that A is the option which I like the most and A is already fixated in my mind and I'm reading other options. If you will go with this idea, then definitely you'll get it wrong. And the best strategy is that form a mental map like I have done. Read the passage effectively, highlight what is important, remember it. At initial days, we can make a rough draft or 1 or 2 or 3 points, the initial part of your practice for CAT, and then after that, slowly and gradually as you read more, you get more accustomed to it, and then what you will do is that you will be able to ace it by just reading it quickly, and then you will be able to make a mental map out of it. So this was all from my side for today. Best wishes for CAT. Have a great day ahead.